The billionaire CEO offered me $1 million in front of 300 people. He didn't offer it because he respected me. He offered it because he wanted everyone in that room to watch me fail. What he didn't know was that the document in his hand contained a name I had spent 11 years trying to find. My father's name. And the moment I saw the faded signature at the bottom of that page, I realized the man standing in front of me wasn't just the son of the person I blamed for my father's death. He might have been the only person capable of helping me uncover the truth. My name is Elena Reed, and on the night everything changed, I was wearing a borrowed black dress, carrying a silver tray, and trying very hard not to look terrified. The ballroom of the Halston Grand glittered above the city like another world. Crystal chandeliers, walls of glass, champagne flowing freely, people wearing watches that probably cost more than my apartment. I had worked events like this before. You learned quickly that wealthy people didn't always look at the person serving them. They looked through them. That was fine with me. Being invisible had its advantages, until Adrian Vale noticed me. He was 36, the youngest CEO in Vale Meridian Group, and according to every business magazine in the country, one of the most powerful men under 40. Tall, immaculately dressed, calm in the way only extremely powerful people could afford to be. Everyone in the room wanted something from him: a handshake, an investment, a photograph, an introduction. I wanted none of those things. I wanted to finish my shift, collect my paycheck, and go home. Unfortunately, someone else had different plans. Adrian had just finished speaking when a man beside me stepped backward. His elbow struck my arm. The tray tilted. A glass shattered against the floor. And the remaining champagne poured directly across Adrian Vale's white shirt. The ballroom went silent. I froze. Someone whispered, "Oh God." Another person laughed. Adrian looked down at his shirt, then slowly looked at me. "I'm sorry," I said immediately. His expression didn't change. "You're sorry?" "Yes. You understand this is a private event." I glanced at the shattered glass. "I'm aware." A few people smiled. Not because anything was funny, because they were waiting to see what he would do. Adrian stepped closer. "You people are trained not to interrupt guests." Something about the way he said "you people" made my stomach tighten. I bent down to pick up the broken glass. Again, "I'm sorry." "Leave it." I stopped. He pointed toward the mess. "Someone else will clean it." I stood. His eyes narrowed. "You don't seem particularly embarrassed." "I am." "You don't look like it." I almost laughed. Instead, I said quietly, "Would you prefer I cry?" A few guests suddenly looked away. Adrian's jaw tightened. "No." "Then we're finished." I turned. "Wait." I stopped. He came closer. "You know who I am?" "Yes." "Then you should understand that your employer can lose this contract because of tonight." That made me turn around. Not because I was afraid, because I knew exactly what losing that contract meant. People like Adrian could call a company and ruin someone's month with one sentence, maybe even someone's year. I swallowed. "I'm sorry." He stared at me. Then something changed in his expression. It wasn't anger anymore. It was curiosity. "You're not afraid of me." "I am." "You're hiding it badly." "I'm hiding it very well." Someone behind him laughed. Adrian heard it. His pride took another hit. He reached inside his jacket and pulled out a thin, cream-colored envelope. The moment I saw it, my heart stopped. Not because of the envelope, because of the handwriting. I knew that handwriting. I had seen it on old postcards, on birthday cards, on the margins of the books my father used to read to me. My father had been dead for 11 years, yet the handwriting on that envelope looked exactly like his. Adrian held it up. This belonged to my father. My breathing changed. He didn't notice. Or maybe he did. "This is a handwritten passage," he continued. "It's written in a language most people in this room can't read." He looked around. Everyone was watching. Then he looked directly at me. "You seem confident." I didn't say that. "You challenged me." I answered a question. He smiled. "Not kindly." "Then answer another." He held the envelope toward me. "Read it." My fingers went cold. I stared at the page. The writing was old. The ink had faded. But the letters were unmistakable. I had spent years studying languages because of my father. Not because I wanted a prestigious career. Not because I wanted to impress anyone. Because before he died, he had left me one sentence. "If they ever tell you I was wrong, find the words they were afraid to show you." I had never understood what he meant. Until now. Adrian lifted his voice. "Correct translation, and I'll give you $1 million. The room erupted in whispers. Someone actually laughed. He thought I was going to refuse. Maybe he wanted me to. I looked at the page again. There was another detail. At the bottom, a tiny mark. 3 lines crossing a circle. My father used that symbol on every document he considered important. I looked up at Adrian. "Where did you get this?" His smile disappeared. "That's not part of the challenge. It should be. You don't negotiate challenges. Then you don't actually want the answer." The room went quiet again. Adrian stared at me. For the first time that night, he didn't look like a billionaire CEO. He looked like a man who had just realized he had made a mistake. He handed me the paper. "Read it." I took it. My hands stopped shaking. I recognized every word. I read the passage aloud. Then I translated it. The room became completely silent. I didn't look at Adrian. I looked at the sentence beneath the passage. The sentence wasn't poetic. It was a warning. Power becomes dangerous when the person holding it no longer believes other people matter. A few guests exchanged glances. Someone whispered, "That's Robert Vale's handwriting." Adrian's face changed. "That's impossible." I looked at him. "Why?" "Because my father never wrote that." I turned the page over. There was something else. A date. 11 years ago. 3 days before my father's death. My heart began pounding. Adrian noticed. "What?" I held the page toward him. "Ask your father." His expression hardened. "My father is dead. So is mine." The words escaped before I could stop them. Nobody spoke. Then Adrian stepped closer. "What was your father's name?" I should have lied. I wish I had. Instead, I said, "Daniel Reed." The effect was immediate. A man near the bar dropped his glass. Adrian didn't move. For several seconds, he simply stared at me. Then he asked something so quietly that I almost didn't hear it. "Did you say Daniel Reed?" "Yes." He looked at the paper again, then at me. "That's impossible." "Why?" "My father spent the last year of his life trying to find him." My blood went cold. I had spent 11 years believing the Vale family had destroyed my father. Now Adrian Vale was telling me his father had been searching for him. Before I could respond, Adrian's phone rang. He answered. "Yes?" His expression changed. "What?" A pause. "Who has access to the archive?" Another pause. Then his eyes moved toward me. "Don't touch anything." He hung up. "What happened?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he looked at the envelope, then at me. That document was locked inside my father's private archive. So nobody has accessed that room since the night he died. The ballroom suddenly felt colder. I looked at the paper in my hands, the handwriting, the symbol, the date, my father's name. And now this. Someone had taken the document from a sealed room. Someone had placed it in Adrian's hands. And someone had known I would recognize it. I whispered, "Then why was it brought here tonight?" Adrian's phone rang again. This time, he didn't answer immediately. The number was blocked. He finally picked up. "Who is this?" A man's voice came through. I couldn't hear the words clearly. But I saw Adrian's face. The confidence disappeared. "Where did you get this number?" The voice said something else. Adrian's hand tightened around the phone. Then the caller said one final sentence. Adrian went completely still. He ended the call. I stared at him. What did he say? Adrian looked at me. "He knew your father's name." My heart sank. "What else?" Adrian didn't answer. "Adrian," he finally spoke. He said Daniel Reed was never supposed to survive the accident. The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. I had heard the word accident thousands of times. My father's car had crashed on a rainy highway. No witnesses. No suspicious circumstances. Case closed. That was what I had been told. For 11 years, I believed it. But Adrian's expression told me something I had never allowed myself to consider. Maybe my father hadn't died in an accident. Maybe someone had wanted him dead. And if that was true, why had Robert Vale been looking for him? Why had Robert kept a document bearing my father's handwriting? And why had someone gone to the trouble of putting that document in front of me? Adrian stepped closer. "I need to talk to you." I laughed once. "It wasn't because anything was funny. Now you need to talk to me." Yes. After humiliating me in front of everyone. I was wrong. Those 3 words surprised me more than anything else that night. A billionaire CEO had just admitted he was wrong, but I wasn't ready to forgive him. Not even close. I handed the document back. "I'm going home." He didn't stop me. Not this time. I walked through the ballroom, past the people who had laughed, past the people who had watched, past the chandeliers and champagne and expensive suits. I reached the service elevator. The doors opened. I stepped inside. Just before they closed, I heard Adrian say my name. Elena. I looked at him. He was standing alone in the middle of the ballroom. No cameras. No audience. No arrogance. Just fear. I think our fathers were trying to tell us something. The doors closed. I leaned against the elevator wall. For 11 years, I had believed I was searching for the truth about my father's death. I was wrong. The truth had been searching for me, and somewhere inside Adrian Vale's family archives was the first piece of it. The next morning, someone broke into my apartment. They didn't steal my laptop. They didn't take my money. They didn't touch the television. They went straight to the one box I had kept since my father's death. And when I opened it, I found that the only photograph of my father I had left was gone. In its place was a single cream-colored envelope. On the front, written in the same handwriting I had just seen at the gala, were 6 words. Elena, do not trust the Vales. The envelope was still on my desk when I realized something terrifying. I recognized the handwriting, not because I had seen it once, because I had spent 11 years memorizing it. My father's handwriting slanted slightly to the right. He crossed his T's too high. His capital D always looked almost unfinished. The 6 words on the envelope had every one of those imperfections. Elena, do not trust the Vales. I stared at them until the letters blurred. Then I opened it. Inside was a single photograph. My father was standing beside another man. Robert Vale, Adrian's father. They weren't arguing. They weren't shaking hands. They were smiling, like friends. I turned the photograph over. A date had been written across the back. 11 years ago. 3 days before my father supposedly died. My stomach tightened. That was impossible. My father had spent his final months telling me that the Vales had ruined everything. At least, that's what I remembered. But the photograph suggested something else. Something much worse. Maybe my father had never hated Robert Vale. Maybe they had been working together. And if they had, what had they been hiding? I grabbed my phone and called the only person I knew who might have an answer. Mrs. Carter, my father's old editor. She had been the one who identified his body after the accident. She answered on the fourth ring. Elena? Mrs. Carter, I need to ask you something. Silence. Then, what happened? Did my father know Robert Vale? The silence became longer. Too long. Why are you asking? Because I found a photograph. Her breathing changed. What kind of photograph? My father and Robert Vale, together. Another silence. Then she said something that made my hands go cold. Where did you find it? That doesn't matter. It matters very much. Why? Her voice dropped. Because Daniel told me never to let that photograph leave his possession. I sat down. What did you just say? Elena. You knew about this? I knew there was a photograph. Of my father and Robert Vale. Yes. Then why did you tell me my father spent his last year investigating the Vale family? Because he did. That doesn't make sense. No. Her voice trembled. It doesn't. I stood. Then tell me the truth. I can't. Why? Because your father made me promise. What? I laughed bitterly. He's been dead for 11 years. I know. Then you don't owe him anything anymore. Mrs. Carter was silent. Then she whispered, I'm not sure he's dead. The room stopped. I couldn't breathe. What? I didn't say that. You did. I shouldn't have. Mrs. Carter, what do you mean? I mean you should stop asking questions. Why? Because someone has already started asking about you. The line went dead. I stood there holding the phone. Someone had already started asking about me, exactly like Adrian had warned. Except I wasn't sure I trusted Adrian either. The envelope literally told me not to. I looked at the photograph again. Robert Vale, Daniel Reed, two men who supposedly belonged on opposite sides of the story. But they were standing together, and whatever secret they had shared had survived 11 years, at least until last night. By 8 the next morning, Adrian Vale was waiting outside my apartment. I nearly walked past him. He stepped out of the black sedan. I need to talk to you. You've said that. This is different. Everything seems different since last night. His eyes moved toward my apartment building. Did someone enter your apartment? I stopped. How do you know? Because my security team found something. He handed me his phone. A photograph showed the hallway outside my apartment. A man in a dark coat stood near my door. His face was turned away. Timestamp, 3:17 a.m. Who is that? We don't know. Your security team was watching my apartment. No. Then why do you have this? Because that man was seen entering the building at 3:12. My chest tightened. 5 minutes before he came to my apartment. Adrian nodded. What happened? I hesitated. Then I showed him the envelope. His face changed. Where did you get that? It was in a box my father left behind. He took the photograph from me. The moment he saw Robert Vale beside Daniel, something shifted in his expression. You knew they worked together? No. Then why are you acting like you recognize this? I don't recognize the photograph. He looked at the date, then at me. 3 days before your father's death. Yes. He looked away. My father was supposed to be in New York that week. According to who? His assistant. Could she be lying? She died 2 years ago. I stared at him. Adrian slipped the photograph into his jacket. I'm taking this. No. He looked at me. I need it. So do I. Elena, whoever broke into your apartment wasn't looking for money. I know. They were looking for this. He pointed at the photograph. No. I shook my head. They were looking for something else. What? The photograph I had. What photograph? The only picture I had of my father. Adrian's expression hardened. Why would they take that? I don't know. Then we find out. I crossed my arms. You keep saying, we. Because we're involved now. We aren't. He stepped closer. My father spent years hiding something from me. I said nothing. And your father spent years investigating it. He looked directly into my eyes. If you want answers, you need someone who can access the places your father couldn't. I hated that he was right. More than that, I hated that part of me already knew I needed him. Where? The Vale Archives. The archive was hidden beneath an old Vale Meridian building on the edge of Tacoma. There was no sign, no security desk. No indication that the building belonged to one of the largest corporations in the country. Only a reinforced door and a keypad. Adrian entered a code. The door opened. Inside were rows of metal cabinets, stretching into darkness. Old files, contracts, photographs, property records, corporate correspondence. Everything the Vale family had ever wanted forgotten. An elderly man appeared from between the shelves. Mr. Vale. Arthur. The old man looked at me. Then his face changed. You're Daniel Reed's daughter. I stared at him. You knew my father. Arthur looked at Adrian. You didn't tell me she was coming. I didn't know she would. Arthur sighed. Then perhaps it's already too late. I stepped forward. What does that mean? He ignored my question. Instead, he walked toward a cabinet. Your father came here frequently. My heart began beating faster. How frequently? Almost every week. Doing what? Looking for records. About the Vale family? Arthur shook his head. No. Then what? The North River Project. Adrian froze. What North River Project? Arthur looked at him. You don't know? No. Your father did. Arthur pulled out a thin file. He placed it on the table. The label read, North River, Environmental Assessment. I opened it. Most pages were technical reports, water samples, chemical measurements, property maps, medical complaints. Then I saw the first handwritten note, my father's handwriting. The public report is false. I looked at Adrian. He was reading over my shoulder. What is North River? One of our old chemical facilities. Old? It was shut down. Why? Environmental violations. Arthur shook his head. That's not why it was shut down. Adrian looked at him. Then why? Arthur hesitated. Because people were getting sick. Silence. I turned another page. The numbers were wrong. The official report showed contamination at safe levels. The private tests showed something completely different. Dangerously high levels. I looked at Arthur. Who changed these? He didn't answer. Arthur. I don't know. You knew my father. Yes. Then you know why he was investigating. Arthur looked toward Adrian. Your father asked me to help him. Adrian stepped closer. My father. Robert Vale. I couldn't speak. Arthur continued. Robert knew something was wrong. Then why didn't he stop it? Because the people responsible were already inside the company. Adrian's face hardened. Who? Arthur shook his head. Robert never told me. You're lying. No. You expect me to believe my father knew people were being poisoned and did nothing. I expect you to understand that he was afraid. Adrian stared at him. My father wasn't afraid of anyone. Arthur looked at him sadly. That's what he wanted everyone to believe. That sentence hit harder than anything else. Arthur opened another drawer. Inside was a stack of visitor records. He handed them to me. Your father came here 8 days after his supposed death. I stared at the page. The date. The signature. Daniel Reed. My knees almost gave out. No. Adrian took the paper. His face went pale. This is impossible. Arthur nodded. That's what Robert said. I looked at him. What happened? Your father came here after the accident. Where did he go? I don't know. Who saw him? Robert. My heart stopped. Robert saw my father. Yes. When? That night. Then why did nobody tell me? Arthur lowered his eyes. Because Robert asked us to keep quiet. I felt something inside me crack. For 11 years, I had imagined my father alone. Broken. Dead. Now I was being told that after his supposed death, he had walked into this building and spoken to Adrian's father, which meant one of two things. Either my father had survived the crash, or someone had forged the records. Neither possibility made sense. Then I saw something beneath the visitor log. A second signature. Robert Vale. And beneath it, a handwritten sentence. If anything happens to me, find James Sullivan. I read the name twice. Who is James Sullivan? Arthur's expression changed. Adrian noticed. You know him? Arthur didn't answer. Arthur. The old man finally said, Dr. James Sullivan was your father's personal physician. Adrian's face went blank. He's dead. No. Arthur shook his head. He disappeared. We spent the next 3 hours searching for Sullivan. His old medical records had been erased from the corporate system. His home had been sold. His clinic was gone. Every trail ended 11 years ago, until I noticed something. A payment. Small. Monthly. Sent from an account belonging to a private trust. The recipient. J. Sullivan. The payments had continued for 11 years. I looked at Adrian. Your company is still paying him. Adrian stared at the screen. I didn't know. Who authorized the payments? He clicked through the records. His expression changed. Someone with board-level access. Who? He didn't answer. Adrian. He turned the screen toward me. One name appeared. Evelyn Stone. I knew that name. Everyone did. Chairwoman of Vale Meridian. Robert Vale's closest friend. The woman who had helped Adrian take control of the company after his father's death. The woman who had publicly called Adrian the son Robert would have been proud of. I looked at Adrian. She knows. He stared at the screen. No. Then why is she paying a supposedly dead man's doctor for 11 years? He didn't answer. His phone rang. The screen showed. Evelyn Stone. Adrian looked at me. Neither of us moved. The phone kept ringing. Finally he answered. Evelyn. Her voice came through softly. Adrian, darling. I couldn't hear every word, but I could see his face. She asked where he was. He lied. She asked whether he had found anything. He said no. There was a long pause. Then Evelyn said something that made Adrian's expression freeze. He slowly looked at me. What did she say? I whispered. He covered the phone. She knows you're with me. My blood ran cold. Then he uncovered the microphone. Evelyn, how do you know Elena? Silence. Then her voice became colder. Because I knew her father. Adrian's eyes narrowed. You knew Daniel Reed. I knew exactly what he was investigating. And Robert? Another pause. Your father made terrible mistakes. Adrian's voice hardened. What did he do? Evelyn sighed. He trusted the wrong person. The call ended. Adrian lowered the phone. I stared at him. Who was the wrong person? He looked at me. I don't know. Then his phone received a message. One image. A photograph of my father. Alive. Standing beside a car. And behind him was Robert Vale. The timestamp was 11 years old. 3 days after my father's supposed death. Beneath the photograph was one sentence. Ask him why he left you. I stared at the screen. My father had been alive after the accident, and suddenly, the question wasn't who killed him, it was worse. And why had my father chosen to disappear? The photograph showed my father standing beside Robert Vale 3 days after the world believed he was dead. I stared at it until my eyes hurt. There was no mistake. The scar above his left eyebrow, the dark coat my mother had bought him, even the old silver watch on his wrist. It was my father, alive, standing beside the man I had spent 11 years believing was responsible for his death. And beneath the photograph were 6 words. Ask him why he left you. I looked at Adrian. Your father knew mine was alive. He didn't answer. Didn't he? I don't know. Then find out. He looked at the photograph again. I will. No. I took the phone from his hand. We will. For 11 years, I had searched for evidence that someone had taken my father from me. Now I had something worse. Evidence that my father had chosen to leave. We returned to the archive before sunrise. Arthur Bell was waiting. The moment he saw the photograph, his face went pale. Where did you get that? It was sent to us. By whom? We don't know. Arthur stared at my father. Then he sat down. Robert told me this day would come. What day? The day you learned Daniel was alive. My heart tightened. You knew? I knew he survived. You knew my father was alive for 11 years. Arthur lowered his head. I knew he survived the crash. That's not the same thing. No. I stepped closer. Where is he? I don't know. Everyone keeps saying that. Because it's true. I slammed my hand against the table. My father was alive, Arthur. I know. He was alive after I buried an empty coffin. Arthur closed his eyes. I know. Then tell me why. He finally looked at me. Because your father wasn't running from the police. Then who was he running from? Arthur didn't answer. Adrian did. Evelyn. Arthur's silence was enough. I turned toward him. Tell me everything. Arthur looked toward the archive entrance, then locked the door. Your father discovered that North River wasn't an isolated incident. Adrian frowned. What do you mean? There were 4 facilities. He opened a drawer and placed 4 folders on the table. North River, Blackwater, Redstone, and Mercer. Each contained environmental reports. Each showed the same pattern. Public reports claimed the contamination was minor. Private reports showed severe contamination. And every private report had been buried. How many communities were affected? Thousands. I looked at Adrian. Your company knew. Apparently. Arthur shook his head. Robert knew. That's different. Is it? Adrian stared at him. Arthur continued. Robert didn't create the cover-up, but he allowed it. At first. I looked up. At first. Arthur nodded. Then he changed his mind. That was the first thing that made sense. Robert had discovered what his company was doing. He had tried to stop it. And someone had stopped him. Who? Arthur pointed toward the folders. Your father was building a case. Against the company? Against someone inside it. Who? Arthur's eyes moved toward Adrian. Evelyn Stone. The room became silent. Adrian leaned against the table. My father's closest advisor. Yes. She worked with him for 20 years. Exactly. I looked at the folders. Why would she do this? Arthur gave a tired smile. Money. Adrian shook his head. She already had money. Not enough. Arthur opened the final folder. Inside were financial transfers. Shell companies. Offshore accounts. Consulting firms that didn't exist. Millions of dollars moving through layers of corporations. At the bottom of several documents was the same signature. Evelyn Stone. My hands went cold. Robert knew. Arthur nodded. And my father. He discovered the connection. When? 3 days before the accident. I looked at the photograph again. 3 days after the accident, my father was alive. That meant something had happened between those 2 dates. Something big enough to make him disappear. We searched the archive for hours. At 10:42 a.m., Adrian found an old security log. Look, a vehicle had entered the Vale property at 2:14 a.m., the night of my father's accident. The driver's name had been removed, but the passenger was listed. Daniel Reed. I stared at it. He came to your father's house. Yes. Why? Adrian kept scrolling. At 2:48 a.m., the vehicle left. Daniel Reed was no longer listed as a passenger. Instead, another name appeared. Robert Vale. My breathing stopped. Your father went somewhere with mine. Apparently. Where? The destination field had been blacked out. Adrian looked frustrated. There's no location. I pointed to the bottom. There. A code. P17. Arthur suddenly stood. No. What? You can't access P17. Why? Because it's not an archive code. Adrian looked at him. Then what is it? Arthur's voice dropped. It's a contingency location. For what? Arthur stared at the floor. People. We found P17 3 hours later. An abandoned coastal property north of Seattle. No company logo. No security. No electricity. Just a small house overlooking grey water. The place looked abandoned. But the front door wasn't locked. Inside, there was dust everywhere. A table. 2 chairs. A fireplace. And on the wall, photographs. Dozens of them. Robert Vale. Daniel Reed. North River. The affected communities. Families standing beside contaminated wells. Children holding medical records. Doctors. Scientists. Documents. My father had been collecting everything. Adrian walked toward one photograph. It showed Robert standing in front of a group of workers. Behind him was a banner. Valley Meridian Community Initiative. Adrian stared. I've never seen this. Your father built this. No. He shook his head. That program was supposed to have been Evelyn's project. I looked at him. Maybe that's the problem. He turned. What? Maybe she took credit for everything your father did. A floorboard creaked. We both froze. Someone was inside. Adrian stepped in front of me. Stay behind me. No. Elena. I'm not hiding. Another sound. Then a door slammed upstairs. Adrian grabbed my hand. We moved toward the staircase. At the top was a hallway. 3 doors. The first was empty. The second contained old files. The third was locked. Adrian tried the handle. Nothing. I noticed something on the wall. 3 lines crossing a circle. The same symbol from my father's envelope. I touched it. The wall clicked. A hidden compartment opened. Inside was a small metal box. My hands began trembling. I knew what this was. My father had left it. Inside the box was a cassette recorder, an old one, and a handwritten note. For Elena, if I'm not there to explain. I couldn't breathe. Adrian looked at me. Do you want me to leave? No. I pressed play. Static filled the room. Then my father's voice, older than I remembered, tired, but unmistakable. Elena, if you're hearing this, then something went wrong. My knees weakened. I sat down. My father's voice continued. I need you to understand one thing before anything else. A pause. I did not leave because I stopped loving you. I covered my mouth. I left because someone inside Vale Meridian discovered that I had evidence. Another pause. Robert helped me. Adrian looked away. My father knew. Yes. He helped me create a false death. My eyes filled with tears. Not because we wanted to deceive you. My father breathed heavily. But because the person watching us had already reached your school. I froze. My school. I remembered the strange man who had appeared outside when I was 16, the one my mother told me not to talk to. My father continued. They knew about you. The recording crackled. If I stayed, they would use you against me. I whispered, "Why didn't you tell me?" The recording continued. Because if you knew I was alive, you would look for me. He paused, and I knew you would. I cried silently. Adrian sat beside me. The recording continued. Robert promised me he would protect you. A long silence. Then Robert discovered the final account. The recording stopped. I stared at the machine. What final account? Adrian looked at me. Play it again. I did. Nothing. The tape ended. I turned it over. There was another recording. I pressed play. My father's voice returned. This account belongs to Evelyn Stone. Then he gave a series of numbers. An account number, a bank, a date, and one final sentence. Follow the money, Elena. The recording ended. We sat in silence. We sat in silence. Then Adrian whispered, "My father knew." Yes. He helped your father disappear. Yes. Then Evelyn wasn't just covering up the contamination. I looked at him. She was hunting them. He nodded. And if she knows we're here. A sound came from downstairs, glass breaking. Adrian stood immediately. Someone had entered the house. We heard footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming toward us. Adrian grabbed the metal box. I grabbed the recorder. We moved toward the back exit. The footsteps stopped. Then a man's voice came from downstairs. "Mr. Vale." Adrian froze. The voice continued. "Bring Elena downstairs." I looked at Adrian. "Who is that?" He didn't answer. The voice came again. "Your father made the mistake of believing he could protect her." A pause. He couldn't. Then the lights suddenly came on. The entire house illuminated. And on the wall opposite us was a photograph. My father, Robert Vale, and a third person, Evelyn Stone. All three standing together, but the date beneath the photograph was impossible. It was taken 2 years after Robert Vale's death. I stared at it. Adrian's face went completely white. That's not possible. I stepped closer. The photograph wasn't old. The paper was almost new. Someone had placed it there recently, and beneath it was another message. Your fathers didn't disappear together. One of them came back. My blood ran cold. Then the back door slammed shut. We were trapped. The man downstairs spoke again. Elena. I recognized his voice. It was the same rough voice from Adrian's phone call. You have something that belongs to us, Adrian whispered. Don't answer, the man continued. The recorder. My grip tightened around it. He knew. Someone knew exactly what we had found. Then I noticed the window. 3 floors down. A narrow balcony. Dangerous, but possible. Adrian followed my gaze. No, it's our only way out. Too dangerous. Then stay. I climbed onto the balcony. Adrian followed. We moved along the narrow ledge as the door behind us burst open. A man stepped into the room. Dark coat. Gloves. Face partially hidden. He looked directly at us and smiled. You really are Daniel Reed's daughter. Adrian pulled me toward the fire escape. We ran. Metal stairs rattled beneath our feet. The man followed. We reached the ground. Adrian grabbed my arm. "Car!" We ran. The engine started. The tires screamed against the wet road. Only when the house disappeared behind us did we stop speaking. I held the recorder against my chest. Adrian stared through the windshield. "He called you Daniel's daughter." "Yes." "He knew your father." "Yes." "He knew about the recorder." "Yes." Adrian's hands tightened around the steering wheel. Then he said, "I know that man." I looked at him. "Who?" He swallowed. "He's former Vale Meridian Security." "How do you know him?" "Because I fired him 6 months ago." "Why?" Adrian looked at me. He was the man assigned to watch my father the night he died. I couldn't speak. He continued. "And according to the records, he was also assigned to watch you." The rain began hitting the windshield harder. Neither of us spoke. Then my phone buzzed. One new message. Unknown number. A photograph appeared. My father. Older. Alive. Standing in front of a small house. And beside him, a little girl. Me. But the photograph wasn't from 11 years ago. The timestamp said 6 months ago. I stared at it. My father's hand rested on the little girl's shoulder, and beneath the photograph was a message. "You were never the reason he disappeared." Another message appeared. "You were the reason he came back." I looked at Adrian. "What does that mean?" He didn't answer, because his phone had just received the same photograph, and underneath mine was one final sentence. "Ask Adrian what his father promised Daniel before he died." Adrian slowly lowered his phone. For the first time since I had met him, he looked genuinely afraid. I whispered, "What did your father promise mine?" He looked at me, and after a long silence he said, "I don't know." Then he opened the glove compartment. Inside was an old envelope, the same cream-colored paper, the same handwriting, and on the front were 4 words. "For Adrian, when she returns." My heart stopped, because suddenly I understood. My father hadn't left the clues for me to find him. He had left them for both of us. And someone had been waiting 11 years for us to finally find them. The envelope had my name on it, but the handwriting belonged to Robert Vale. I knew that because I had spent the last 2 days staring at his writing, in photographs, documents, and the old letter Adrian had challenged me to translate at the gala. "For Adrian, when she returns." I looked at Adrian. He didn't touch it. "Open it," I said. He shook his head. "Why?" "Because whatever is inside was meant for me, and apparently for me." He looked at the envelope again. Then he slowly picked it up. The seal was already broken. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Adrian read the first line. His face changed. "What?" He handed it to me. I read it. "Adrian, if Elena is standing beside you when you open this, then everything I feared has happened." My hands tightened around the paper. The letter continued. "You will want to protect the company. Don't." I looked at Adrian. He didn't speak. I continued reading. "You will want to protect my name. Don't. The truth matters more than either." Below that was a handwritten list. 4 names. 4 executives. 4 people who had been on the board when North River was operating. The final name was Evelyn Stone. But underneath Evelyn's name was something else. A bank account. The same account number my father had mentioned on the recording. Adrian stared at it. "That's the account." "Yes." He took out his phone. "I can trace it." "Do it." He opened the corporate financial system. The account appeared immediately, but the owner wasn't Evelyn Stone. It belonged to a company called Meridian Heritage Trust. Adrian frowned. I've never heard of it. Who owns it? He opened the registration documents. His expression went blank. I knew before he said anything. What? The trust is owned by... He stopped. Adrian. He looked at me. Robert Vale. My stomach dropped. What? The trust was created 20 years ago. Then Evelyn didn't own the money. No. She was moving it. For whom? Adrian stared at the screen. For my father. I couldn't understand. Then your father was involved. Maybe. You said he was helping mine. I know. Maybe he wasn't. Adrian looked at me. The possibility hurt him. Maybe Robert Vale wasn't the hero we had imagined. Maybe he had simply been another man trying to save himself. Then I noticed something. Wait. I pointed to the trust records. There. A second beneficiary. Adrian opened it. My breath caught. Daniel Reed. My father. Robert had created a trust for him. Not Evelyn. Not himself. My father. Why would Robert hide money for Daniel? Adrian didn't answer. I looked at the date. The trust had been created 11 years before the accident. That meant Robert and my father had been working together long before the North River investigation. There was something deeper here. Something that had started years before either of us knew. Then, Adrian's computer flashed. Remote access detected. The screen went black. A second later, every light in the car park turned on. We were no longer alone. We left immediately. Adrian drove to his penthouse. I didn't want to go there. It felt like the obvious place to find us. But Adrian had a reason. The security system there is isolated from the company network. Can Evelyn access it? Not without my authorization. He looked at me. At least, she shouldn't. We entered the penthouse. The city stretched beneath the windows. For the first time, the view looked empty. Adrian went directly to his father's old study. He opened a hidden compartment beneath the desk. Inside was a metal key. What is that? My father gave it to me when I was 18. For what? I don't know. He had never used it. Until now. We searched the study. Nothing. Then I noticed the bookshelf. The same symbol was carved into the wood. 3 lines crossing a circle. I touched it. A panel opened. Inside was a small black case. Adrian stared at it. My father knew you would find this. Not me. I looked at him. Us. He opened the case. Inside were 3 things. A USB drive, a key, and a photograph. The photograph showed Robert Vale, Daniel Reed, and Evelyn Stone. Again. But this time they weren't smiling. They were standing over a table covered with documents. On the back, Robert had written, "The first betrayal always looks like loyalty." I looked at Adrian. Your father knew. Yes. He knew Evelyn was betraying him. Apparently. Then why did he keep her close? Adrian looked at the photograph. Because he needed her. For what? He plugged the USB drive into a secure computer. A video appeared. Robert Vale sat behind the same desk. Older, tired, and frightened. I had never seen a billionaire look frightened before. He looked directly into the camera. If you're watching this, then Evelyn has already discovered the archive. Adrian leaned forward. Robert continued. I need you to understand something. He paused. North River was never the real crime. I felt cold. Robert looked down. The contamination was the beginning. Adrian whispered, What does that mean? The recording continued. The real operation was the acquisition of land surrounding the facilities. Maps appeared on the screen. Thousands of acres, communities, homes, farms. Businesses. Robert explained that executives had deliberately suppressed contamination reports. Property values dropped. Families were pressured to sell. Shell companies purchased their land. Then Vale Meridian acquired the surrounding properties at a fraction of their value. It wasn't just environmental corruption. It was a land scheme. People had been made sick so their homes could be bought cheaply. I stared at the screen. How many? Robert's voice continued. Thousands of families. My chest tightened. Adrian looked devastated. My company did this. Not you. He shook his head. My name is on it. Your father's name is too. He looked at me. I don't know if that makes it better. It doesn't. He nodded. For once, he didn't defend himself. The recording continued. I tried to expose them. Robert looked directly into the camera. But Evelyn discovered what I was doing. The video paused. Then another file opened. A security report. Subject: Daniel Reed. Status: Containment required. My hands went cold. Containment. Adrian looked at me. They were going to kill him. Robert's voice returned. I couldn't stop them openly, so I staged the accident. The room became silent. Daniel survived. My heart stopped. He's alive. Robert continued. I moved him under another identity. Then why didn't he contact me? Because Evelyn had people watching you. A photograph appeared. Me, 16 years old, walking out of school. Someone had circled a man standing across the street. The same man from the photograph we had received. My father had been watching me from a distance. Alive, but unable to approach. I covered my mouth. Robert continued. Daniel wanted to return, but I convinced him that staying hidden was the only way to keep Elena alive. The recording stopped. I couldn't move. All those years. My father hadn't abandoned me. He had been protecting me. But there was one question left. Where is he now? Adrian searched the files. Nothing. Then the final folder opened. Project Reed, final location. He clicked it. A map appeared. One location, a small coastal town. The exact house from the photograph I had received. 6 months ago. My father had been there, alive. And then the screen changed. Location, status, vacant. I stared. He left. Adrian nodded. Recently. Why? A notification appeared. One new email. From an unknown sender. You want Daniel Reed? Then another line appeared. Come to the Vale boardroom tomorrow at 8 a.m. And beneath it, come alone. Blythe. The next morning, Adrian refused to let me go alone. You said come alone. I know. Then you can't come. I can. No. He looked at me. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You'll lose everything. I already have. He wasn't wrong. By then, the board had frozen his executive accounts. 3 directors had demanded his resignation. The media was reporting that he had suffered a mental breakdown. Evelyn had already begun controlling the narrative. Adrian looked at me. They're going to destroy me. I nodded. They're going to try. He smiled slightly. You're getting dangerous. I learned from you. We entered the boardroom at exactly 8. Evelyn was waiting. 5 directors sat around the table. Lawyers stood behind them. Security guards blocked the doors. Evelyn looked calm, elegant, almost maternal. Adrian? He sat. I remained standing. Her eyes moved toward me. Elena. I said nothing. She smiled. You have your father's eyes. That sentence almost broke me. You knew him. Yes. You helped him disappear. I did. Adrian looked at her. Why? Because your father was going to destroy everything. Everything? The company? No. Evelyn smiled. The people behind it? Silence. Then she placed a folder on the table. Your father wasn't innocent. Adrian stared. He participated. She opened the folder. Inside were signatures. Robert Vales. Daniel Reed's. Agreements. Payments. Contracts. Evidence that could make both men look guilty. My heart sank. You see, Evelyn said, your fathers were partners. I looked closer. Something felt wrong. The dates. The signatures. One document was dated after Robert's death. I picked it up. This is forged. Evelyn's smile disappeared. The signature is identical. Exactly. She stared at me. My father taught me to recognize his handwriting. I held the document up. That isn't his signature. Adrian looked at the page. She's right. Evelyn's expression hardened. You're making a mistake. No. I placed another document beside it. This one is real. The room went silent. The spacing is different. The pressure is different. The pen angle is different. I looked directly at Evelyn. Someone copied Robert Vale's signature. Her face changed. For the first time, she looked afraid. Adrian stood. You forged the documents. Evelyn's lawyers moved. Security stepped forward. Then the boardroom doors opened. Arthur Bell walked in. Behind him were federal investigators. And Dr. James Sullivan, the same man everyone believed had disappeared. Evelyn turned white. Arthur placed a box on the table. The original records. Sullivan placed another. Medical evidence. Then another person entered. My heart stopped. An older man, gray hair, thin face, walking slowly. But I knew him. I knew him before my mind accepted it. Dad? He stopped. Our eyes met. For 11 years, I had imagined his face, older. I had imagined his voice. I had imagined what I would say if I ever saw him again. But when he finally stood in front of me, I couldn't say anything. My father whispered, Elena. I crossed the room, then stopped. I wanted to hug him. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to ask why. Why he left. Why he let me grieve. Why he stayed alive while I believed he was dead. Instead, I said, You promised you would come back. His eyes filled with tears. I tried. Not hard enough. He nodded. I know. Behind us, Evelyn stood frozen. Adrian looked at her. How many people knew? She didn't answer. Sullivan did. Enough. The investigators opened the files. Evidence spread across the table. Bank records, medical records, original environmental reports, security footage, messages. The entire operation was there, but Evelyn wasn't finished. She smiled, then reached into her handbag. She pulled out a phone. Before you celebrate, she pressed one button. Every screen in the room turned on. A live feed appeared. A warehouse, rows of documents, and a man tied to a chair. My father looked at the screen. His face changed. No. I turned toward him. Who is that? He whispered. Robert's son. Adrian froze. My brother? My father never told you? No. Evelyn smiled. Because Robert had another secret. The room exploded into chaos. Adrian stepped toward her. What did you do? Evelyn backed away. Your father wasn't the only one who betrayed me. She looked at me. Daniel knows where the final evidence is. Then she looked at Adrian. And your brother knows where Daniel hid it. A security alarm suddenly screamed. The lights went out. The boardroom doors locked, and somewhere beneath the building, an explosion shook the floor. I grabbed my father's hand. Adrian shouted, Everyone down! Smoke filled the hallway. People screamed. But through the chaos, Evelyn disappeared. And when the emergency lights came back on, the table was empty. The original evidence was gone. My father was gone. And Adrian's phone displayed one final message. If you want your father back, bring the original North River file to Harbor Crown Tower. Then another message appeared. Come before midnight. Or Daniel Reed dies for real this time. The message was still glowing on Adrian's phone. If you want your father back, bring the original North River file to Harbor Crown Tower. Then another line appeared. Come before midnight. Or Daniel Reed dies for real this time. I read it twice. My father was alive. Somewhere inside the building, where this entire nightmare had begun, someone was holding him. And for the first time in 11 years, I had a chance to get him back. Adrian looked at me. We can't give them the file. I know. We also can't go without it. I know. He stared at the screen. So what do we do? I looked at the original North River file sitting on the floor. Then I looked at him. We give them what they think they want. We had less than 4 hours. The investigators wanted us to stay inside the building. Adrian refused. They'll kill him. One of the agents shook his head. We have officers surrounding Harbor Crown. They'll see them. We can use plain clothes. They'll still see them. I stepped between them. Then don't send anyone. Everyone looked at me. The agent frowned. What? That's what Evelyn expects. Adrian understood immediately. She wants us desperate. Yes. She thinks we'll bring the original evidence. But we won't. I looked at the North River file. We'll bring a copy. The agent shook his head. She'll know. Not if we make her believe it. Adrian stared at me. What are you thinking? I remembered the first night. The envelope, the handwriting, the Latin phrase, the symbol. My father's obsession with details, the things everyone else ignored. I opened the file. Your father never trusted digital evidence. Adrian nodded. He believed anything electronic could be altered. Exactly. I turned the pages. Then, we give Evelyn something she can't verify until it's too late. Inside the file was a small strip of paper, a handwritten note, my father's handwriting. I read it. Then I smiled. I know where the real evidence is. Harbor Crown Tower looked exactly as it had the night I first met Adrian. Glass, steel, light, money. But now every window looked like a warning. We entered through the main entrance at 11:41 p.m. No security guards, no receptionists, no employees. The entire building was empty. That was worse than seeing people. Adrian walked beside me. He carried the case. I carried the original North River file. Are you sure? He whispered. No. He almost smiled. Good. Good? Being sure got us into this mess. We reached the elevator. The doors opened automatically. We stepped inside. The elevator began climbing. 20 floors. 30. 40. Then the number continued. The penthouse. The place where Adrian had first discovered the video of himself humiliating me. The place where this story had started. When the doors opened, Evelyn was waiting. She stood beside the glass wall overlooking Seattle. Elegant as always. Calm. Untouchable. My father was sitting in a chair behind her. Alive. His hands were tied. I stopped breathing. Dad. He looked at me. Elena. His voice broke. Don't come any closer. Evelyn smiled. You see? She turned toward me. Your father always was difficult. I stared at her. You hurt him. I protected the company. You destroyed families. I preserved thousands of jobs. You poisoned people. I made difficult decisions. People died. Evelyn's expression hardened. People always die. Adrian stepped forward. And you think that makes you innocent? She looked at him. No. She smiled. It makes me realistic. Adrian placed the case on the floor. Here. Evelyn nodded toward it. Open it. He did. Inside was the original North River file. Evelyn walked toward it. She opened the first page, then the second. Her smile returned. You really brought it. I said nothing. She looked at me. You were always smarter than your father expected. My father knew exactly who I was. No. She shook her head. He knew what you could become. I glanced at my father. He looked exhausted, but he smiled, just slightly, and I knew. He understood. Evelyn reached for the final document, the forged approval. She looked at the signature, then laughed. Too easy. She closed the file. You really thought this would be enough? I smiled. No. Her expression changed. Adrian stepped forward. Because that's not the evidence. Evelyn froze. I pulled the small strip of paper from my pocket. The original file was never in the case. Evelyn looked at me. Where is it? I held up the paper. My father left a second archive. She stepped closer. Where? I smiled. You spent 11 years looking for it. Her face changed. Where? Inside the place you never thought to search. The community center? No. Vale Archives? No. Robert's study? No. I looked at Adrian, then back at Evelyn. Your own office. She went completely still. Adrian understood. The symbol. The hidden compartment. The files. The bank records. The original North River evidence had been moved years ago, and Robert had hidden it somewhere Evelyn would never destroy without exposing herself. Her own private board office. Because nobody suspected the person hiding the evidence would hide it in plain sight. Evelyn reached for her phone. Nothing. The screens around the room suddenly turned on. Every monitor displayed the same thing. The original North River files. Every environmental report. Every financial transfer. Every name. Every signature. Every communication. And the first image was Robert Vale. Then Daniel Reed. Then Evelyn Stone. The files had already been uploaded. Not by us. By James Sullivan, the man Evelyn thought had disappeared. Her face drained of color. You. My father smiled weakly. James kept copies. Evelyn turned toward him. You betrayed me. No. My father looked at her. I stopped protecting you. The penthouse doors opened. Federal agents entered. Evelyn looked at Adrian. Your company will collapse. He nodded. I know. Your family name will be destroyed. I know. You'll lose everything. Adrian looked at me, then at my father. No. He shook his head. I already lost the things that mattered when I believed money was more important than people. Evelyn stared at him. For the first time, she had nothing to say. The agents arrested her. She didn't fight. She simply looked at Adrian as she was led away. You'll regret this. Adrian answered quietly. Maybe. Then the doors closed behind her. Silence returned. I ran to my father. This time, I didn't stop. I wrapped my arms around him. He held me. Neither of us spoke for a long time. When I finally pulled away, I hit his chest, hard enough to make him step back. You left me. I know. You let me think you were dead. I know. I went to your grave. I know. I hated you. His eyes filled with tears. I hated myself more. I looked away. You should have told me. I couldn't. You should have tried. I did. Not enough. He nodded. I know. For years, I had imagined forgiving my father would feel like a dramatic moment. It didn't. It felt uncomfortable, messy, incomplete, but real. I reached for his hand. "You're going to have to earn it." He squeezed my fingers. "I will." 3 months later, the North River investigation became national news. The evidence exposed years of environmental fraud, land manipulation, falsified reports, illegal surveillance, and financial corruption. Families who had been told their suffering was unrelated finally received answers. Former employees began coming forward, one after another. Some had kept documents. Some had recordings. Some had spent years afraid. Now they no longer needed to be afraid. Evelyn Stone was charged with multiple crimes. Several former executives followed. Vale Meridian collapsed. The board removed Adrian. His shares lost most of their value. His penthouse was sold. His cars were sold. His private jet was sold. He lost the company his grandfather had built, the company his father had expanded, and the identity he had spent his entire life protecting. People expected him to be devastated. He was. But he was also strangely relieved. One evening, months after the scandal, I found him sitting outside a small community office in Beacon Hill. He was wearing jeans. A plain gray shirt. No expensive watch. No security team. No assistant. I sat beside him. "You look different." He smiled. "So do you." "That's because I haven't slept." "Neither have I." We laughed. For a while, neither of us said anything. Then, Adrian looked at me. "Do you regret accepting the $1 million challenge?" I smiled. "I never got the million. You could still claim it. I don't want it." He looked surprised. "Why?" "Because that money came from the person you used to be." He nodded. "Fair." I looked toward the community center across the street. The building had opened 2 weeks earlier. It provided legal assistance, environmental education, language classes, tutoring, and support for families affected by corporate negligence. My father helped organize the archive. James Sullivan volunteered twice a week. Arthur Bell donated the first collection of historical records. Adrian had funded the building anonymously. At least he thought it was anonymous. I knew. "How long are you planning to keep pretending you didn't pay for this?" He smiled. "As long as possible." "Why?" "Because people don't need to know who paid." That answer told me more about him than any apology could have. He had changed. Not because he wanted me to forgive him, because he finally understood that doing the right thing didn't require applause. My father didn't move back into my apartment. Neither of us pretended 11 lost years could disappear. Instead, he rented a small house near the community center. We had breakfast together 3 mornings a week. Sometimes we talked for hours. Sometimes we argued. Sometimes neither of us knew what to say. But he was there. That was enough for now. One rainy afternoon, I found him sorting through old papers. I noticed a cream-colored envelope. The same kind of envelope that had started everything. "What is that?" He smiled. "Your father would have hated how dramatic this has become." I laughed. He was the one leaving mysterious envelopes. True. He handed it to me. Inside was the original Latin passage, the same words Adrian had challenged me to translate. I read them again. "Power becomes dangerous when the person holding it no longer believes other people matter." I looked at my father. "Did you write this?" "No." "Robert?" He nodded. "Why did he give it to you?" "Because he wanted me to remember why we were fighting." I stared at the page. And then he gave it to Adrian. He hoped Adrian would understand someday. I thought about the gala, the ballroom, the spilled wine, the humiliation, the $1 million challenge. I had thought that night was the beginning. It wasn't. It was simply the moment the past finally caught up with us. A year after the gala, The community center held its first anniversary. There were children running through the halls, teachers carrying books, families attending legal workshops, volunteers serving coffee. Nobody cared what brand of shoes anyone wore. Nobody cared how much money was in anyone's bank account. Everyone had a place. I stood near the entrance when Adrian walked in. He was carrying a box of donated books. A little boy ran toward him.
Mr. Vale!
Adrian smiled. What happened? We need more science books. I brought some. The boy grabbed his hand. Come look. Adrian followed him. I watched them disappear into the library. My father stepped beside me. You like him? I nearly choked. That's a dangerous accusation. He laughed. You don't have to marry him. I wasn't planning to. Good. Why? Because he has terrible taste in ties. I laughed. For the first time in 11 years, my father and I laughed together, without sadness hiding underneath it. Later that evening, after everyone left, Adrian and I sat in the garden. The city lights flickered beyond the fence. Do you ever think about that night? He asked. The gala? Yes. Sometimes. I was awful. You were. I offered you $1 million to prove you were intelligent. You were trying to humiliate me. I know. I smiled. You succeeded. He looked surprised. Really? Yes. He looked down. Then I'm sorry. I studied his face. This time, there was no audience, no cameras, no board members, no reason for him to apologize, except because he meant it. I forgive you. He looked at me. Really? Not because you became poor. He laughed. I wasn't going to ask. I know. Then why? I looked toward the center. Because you changed. He was quiet. Then he said, I didn't change because I lost everything. I waited. I changed because I finally realized what I had. I looked at him. He continued. A name. A company. Money. Power. None of those things made me better than the person standing in front of me. I smiled. That's a lesson that cost you more than $1 million. He nodded. Much more. Years later, people still remembered the story. They remembered the billionaire CEO who humiliated a waitress. They remembered the impossible challenge. They remembered the $1 million offer. They remembered the woman who translated the mysterious letter and silenced an entire ballroom. But they didn't know the part that mattered most. The money wasn't the point. The letter wasn't the point. Even the conspiracy wasn't the point. The real story began when two people discovered that everything they had inherited was built on a version of the truth someone else had chosen for them. My father had inherited fear. Adrian had inherited power. I had inherited grief. None of us could change the past, but we could decide what we did with it. My father spent years believing disappearing was the only way to protect me. Adrian spent years believing control was the only way to lead. And I spent years believing the dead could only be honored by uncovering whoever had caused their death. We were all wrong. Sometimes protecting someone means trusting them with the truth. Sometimes leadership means admitting you were wrong. And sometimes healing doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means refusing to let what happened control everything that comes next. The community center still stands today. There is no marble, no golden statue, no billionaire's name carved across the entrance, just a small sign above the door. The Reed Vale Center for Truth and Community. The first time I saw it, I asked Adrian why he allowed his family name to be there. He said, because my family name shouldn't only remind people of what we did wrong. I asked, then what should it remind them of? He looked at me. That what we inherit isn't what defines us. He paused. What we choose to do with it does. And perhaps that was the truth my father had spent 11 years trying to leave behind. Not a fortune, not a company, not revenge. A choice, because power was never measured by how many people obeyed you. It was measured by how you treated the people who had nothing to offer you. And that lesson had cost us far more than $1 million. But unlike money, it became more valuable every time someone chose to live by it.